Love, love, love. That's the message today. Coming up next on Pastor Bob's Coffee Break. One of our older mugs, inspired by Jesus Christ. Yes. And they said, what's the greatest commandment? And he said, love the Lord your God with all of your guts. Pastor Bob paraphrase. And he said the second is just like it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love, love, love. You know, we've got some of the best merch, I have to say. And every single month we have a new poster. This is the one, my fact checker, the Bible. We've got our HEADBANGERS BREW, the best coffee around in whole bean, ground, decaf, K-cups. And folks, and the devotional. You know, I've written several books. This is my favorite. It's called Metal Devo. It's a daily devotional. It's pretty thick. Daily devotional for metalheads. You can get this wherever books are sold. But wait, there's more. You know, I love these shirts that we just did. And it's our Maynard Metal shirts. It says, Classic Christian Metal Fan. And we redesigned our Maynard Metal from 1985, 86, whatever it was. And then we asked you, who are your favorite classic Christian metal bands? And you came up with your top 20. And they're on the back of the shirt. These are classic shirts. But wait, there's more. It's a poster. Yes. It's this size, pretty good size. It's also 2 foot by 3 foot with all the bands on it. Oh, we're not done yet. It's also mugs. And I say mugs. It's 2 of them. The first one is Classic Christian Metal Fan with all the bands on it. The other one with Maynard Metal. And very cool mug. And you can get all of that stuff, the t-shirt, everything right here. WearMetalWearFamily.com. Well, that was kind of a long commercial, but you know, all the proceeds from our stuff go to feed the homeless. And I don't mind raising money for that because there's a lot of people that really need our help. Well, there's a quote from an old movie that I think is hilarious called Naked Gun. Maybe you've seen it a lot of years ago. And there are explosions going off in the background right behind him. Complete mayhem. And he's talking to the crowds that are gathering, and he says, move along, there's nothing to see here. Move along. Classic line. And folks, this is exactly what we're hearing today. If the mainstream media has any line that they tell us, not verbally, but they say, move along, nothing to see here. Not reporting news that's very slanted. And I'm not talking about just one side, every side. It's hard to trust news these days. One is fighting the other, and there's this conflict, and you think, what do I believe anymore? You know, it's difficult to love these days. People don't do it very well. And you'd think after all this time in the history of the world, and we thought that when we got to this century, that it would be a utopia. And I remember all the old movies looking at these days and how everybody was peaceful and we'd learned and we don't have any more wars. And yet look at us, human nature. Wrote an article the other day about homelessness. And I was sitting in Starbucks, and there was a guy sitting in the corner, a homeless man, and he comes into Starbucks when they open at 4 a.m., and he sits down in the corner with his 2 suitcases, roll-on suitcases, and he sleeps. And he sleeps for a few hours. He buys a bottle of water. He has enough for that. And he goes and sleeps. And the guy's homeless. And I wrote an article and I made some observations and talked about him and talked about, the plight of the homeless and why I thought he was newly on the streets because he still has his 2 bags. And after a while, those 2 bags will most likely get stolen because they always do. He'll lose everything, his identity, everything. And he will join the ranks of many homeless people who really have a difficult time getting off the streets once they get to that place. It's difficult anyway. And then I said that his homelessness is largely a product of political positioning and greed. And if you really look at it, and if you don't listen to the message where they're saying, move along, there's nothing to see here, you realize that there's a lot to see here. And we deal with this every day here in Nashville. People have been moved out of both camps where we've been feeding for a long time. We've been moved over and over and over again, and we have to keep finding the homeless because they're moved when we're not there and we don't know where they went. And so we found a lot of them. We serve 3 places every day now, kind of back in the boondocks. And we're probably going to add a 4th location, and we could do a whole lot more if we had volunteers. But I talked about it, and I talked about the plight, and I talked about how difficult it is. And I live in Nashville, the city that has more churches per capita than any city in the world. And I can't find volunteers. I put out a plea, 2 of them, last week, a week before, saying we really need help. Listed some areas we need help with, easy things if people could just do it. Nothing. 17,000 people saw those posts. Nothing. Got this one comment from the article that I wrote about the homeless man. And I said again that he was a product of political positioning and greed. And the guy said, and you know this how? I explained how. And how do you know we're not being the church? I asked people to be the church. Don't just play church. We need to be the church to the people outside of the building. Just because we don't all live in Nashville helping you with your ministry does not mean we're all playing church. This was a pretty judgmental post, Pastor Bob. I'm really sorry this person took it that way. And very honestly, if it was, I would totally admit it. I don't have anything to defend, but it really wasn't judgmental. It was informational. Any judgment you might have felt is personal, honestly. And I'll admit that some of the article was prompted by my frustration, my disappointment in trying to find people to help with ministry, especially the metal community. It's just been my dream to have the metal community involved with us. We used to have several. I don't know how to get them involved at this point, because it is metal, in its tone. All of our pictures, all of our stuff is Metal Dude, pictures of Metal Dude and all the stuff that we use. And it's a heavy metal diner theme. Yeah. Well, let's look at some scriptures. I could go on and on about this. I'm kind of ranting today, huh? Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. And it says, therefore, become imitators of God. Copy him. Follow his example as well-beloved children. Imitate their father. In other words, be imitators of God. Do what he does. Feel what he feels. Love how he loves. And then it says, and walk continually, not just once in a while, walk continually in love. That is, excuse me, value one another, practice empathy and compassion, unselfishly seeking the best for others. It says, walk this way, just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us as an offering and as an offering and a sacrifice to God, slain for you, so that it became a sweet fragrance. He says, copy God. Copy what he did. Copy his love. Copy his compassion. Copy his empathy. Copy his unselfish seeking the best for everybody. Copy him. That's our role in the world. Now, when you listen to mainstream media, when you listen to political positioning, when you hear all the messages of the world around us, the Bible says, please be careful. Don't let the world squeeze you into its mold, because they try to. Instead, be filled with the Spirit, see with God's eyes, feel with God's heart. Extend your hands with God's hands and help those around. That's important, massively important. And never believe it when somebody says, move along, there's nothing to see here. There's plenty to see here. We just need to be involved. We've been talking about revival over the last few days. We're going to keep talking about it. It is my heart that we see revival in the world. More specifically, my heart is to see revival within the heavy metal community. I long for it. I wake up with it every day, and I'm ready for it. Are you? God bless you. Thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.